All right. Hello, loyal listeners. Today is going to be fire. I hope you guys have your notepads ready. I get an opportunity to sit down with one of the guys who is like totally big in the community and just like the volunteer space and like helping people run events and all that good stuff. He comes from a radio background as well. I'm sure he'll get into his story with you guys, but I'm so excited to have Mike Jones as my guest today. So welcome to Pursuit of Relentless podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, awesome. So let's start out with your story, where you came from, how you got to where you're at right now.
Well, born in Edmonton, pretty much lived in Alberta my entire life. I was in Leduc for a good chunk of it, moved to Leduc in 92, so grade 2. I just aged myself, of course, but that's okay. I'm 36, it's fine. I'm not ashamed of it. Grade 2, Leduc, stayed there through high school, moved to Edmonton, eventually kind of dawdled around, worked, didn't go to college right away, worked. I was in the nightclub bar scene for about 5 years, working at Union Hall and the Ranch and Whiskey Rock at one point as well. So kind of within the same chain, doing busing, porting, a little bit of liquor management as well towards the end. And then eventually got into, I had always kind of wanted to do radio. So I took like a night program and then I didn't get in because my marks weren't good enough. So I had to go and upgrade. So
Dang.
Study and do your due diligence in high school there, kids. So eventually got into the radio school, the program, met some lifelong friends, graduated, and then did my practicum up in Grand Prairie for a couple of months as a volunteer, as an intern. And then about 2 or 3 months into that, pretty much as I was about halfway through, a paid job opened up here in Fort McMurray. So I thought, why the heck not? I'm already in Grand Prairie. I'm already pretty north. Let's take it. There's money. If I can make money in radio, that's the dream. So moved up here, and the rest kind of history. Started off as a weekend swing announcer at Country 93.3 and 97.9 Rock. And then shortly after that, I got really into I've always been a huge music fan. So got really excited about the idea of programming the station. So the music director job opened up and applied for that and got that. And then shortly after that, the afternoon drive position opened up. So I was music director and afternoon drive for, overall, I was at the station for about 8 years or 7 years, something like that. If I do the math, 8 years. And then obviously COVID happened and things were not as ideal as, it wasn't as fun for me anymore. And I wasn't enjoying the studio side of things. I tended to be a bigger fan of getting out in the community and doing the community events and stuff like that. And kind of figured out that I could have my cake and eat it too, and, go into a different world. So I had a few of my close friends were kind of encouraging me to take that leap. And said, if you're not happy, time to jump. If you're ready to go, you can go. And so I kind of fell right into a job here at the Canadian Mental Health Association as the marketing and communications coordinator. The job became available, and it's honestly, it's a dream job. I'm getting to do events basically full time. I basically get to promote things, do all the social media stuff, which is kind of comes naturally to me. And they're extremely flexible. The team is so good to me, and and it's one of those things where I feel like I'm out in the community trying to be positive all the time and where we can, but also talking about the serious sides of mental health. And I think that especially after the last 2 years, I feel like this is a job where I can talk to anyone, because everybody has mental health issues in some way, whether it's moderate or severe. I think it's something, this job can appeal to anyone. So I think our events are super important. So.
Oh, I agree 100%. I had the Canadian Mental Health Association sponsor one of my yogathons that I did a couple years ago. And it was really cool just to be able to be in that environment and go, hey, if you're struggling with mental health, which who isn't really, let's be real.
Yeah, of course.
If you're not, or you won't admit it, you're probably lying to yourself. But There's so much stress and negativity in the world right now. And I think that if people can really just own the fact that it's good to talk to people and really get out there and, buddy up like you were talking about earlier. But it's incredible to just put yourself out there and go, hey, I'm going to go into the community and I'm going to try something new, because I think people get stuck where they're at because it's comfortable. And I think that when you're really trying to pursue your dreams, sometimes you got to take that leap of faith and really just put yourself in an uncomfortable position, which is what I did in my career too. I said, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I was not willing to give up my life for someone else. Like I'm not willing to give up my life to be paid half as much as this guy who's doing nothing, sleeping on the side of the road when I'm hauling ass all day. I was like, what am I doing? So
I want to be in control. Exactly.
Yeah. So when this opportunity came up, I was like, yes. And then I was able to start the podcast, which helped me with my mental health through COVID for sure. Because my business did awesome. Like people started talking more about money and finance and how to get wealthy and like how to not be in debt and stuff like that. And I was like, boom, this is where I belong. So I went full time with my business in 2017, but I think it didn't really hit me until like 2019, 2020. When I actually started like seeing some progression in my own physical body. Like I was able to completely transform. People are like, I don't even recognize you. I'm like, because I'm not the same person, like I'm totally different. And it's just
a big change.
Yeah, but we can't be afraid of change either. Like I think that's really important to understand.
Oh, I used to be. I still am a little bit. Change can be terrifying, right? But especially when you find something comfortable, and that's as much as that's all I've ever really wanted is to be comfortable, I think, I've, overstayed a lot of places and overstayed in a lot of jobs because of comfort, because I was like, well, I could go somewhere else and advance myself, but I'm comfortable here. Like when I worked in the bar scene in Edmonton, I enjoyed the fact that, I would always have cash because you would get cash tips on the weekend. And I enjoyed the fact that we had a community or a team that would go out and party together on a Sunday night. And, so I was like, why would I leave? This is fun. I get some exercise and get to hustle around a couple nights a week. But then, it sort of was like, okay, it's time to can't do this forever. Time to move on.
I was told some really good advice when I first started with the company I'm with now. He said, go interview your future. And you look at someone who's been doing your career for 30 or 40 years, for example, and you ask yourself if you can handle that, or if that's the life that you want, right? Or do they have the dream life? Do they have the life that I am looking to build? And the answer was hell no, right? I was like, no way that I want to be crippled. I don't want to be poor. Like, no, this is not what I wanted. And that was a big moment for me that I was just like, holy, I need to figure this out, because I'm a contribution person. I love a team environment. I love being a part of something bigger than myself,
Yeah.
And I think that when you share good news with people and have the opportunity to like really put yourself out there and go, hey guys, let's go make a difference in the world, that you find that element of fulfillment that really helps you find true happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, kind of one of the things that I've always tried to kind of convey to people and share to people, through whatever it is I do, whether it is Good News Only or the social media stuff, just that I'm just happy and like I'm just blessed to be here in this position, you know what I mean? And I love to give back and whatever I can do for this community, for Fort McMurray, because it's changed me as a person, and it's taken me to where I want to be. And as much as, back in the day, my dream job was to work at Union Hall and to be at a nightclub and listen to tunes all night. This is really where I want to be. And I think that this community never ceases to amaze me. And what I give to this community is only a tenth or a fraction of what it's given to me. So I'm eternally at its service, so to speak.
You know what I see in Fort McMurray that is unlike anywhere that I've ever seen every single person that moves to Fort McMurray is literally on a mission to have a better life.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
people don't just
absolutely.
come to Fort McMurray, they chase the money, but then when they get here, they chase the lifestyle. And then
Mhm.
once you have the lifestyle, you're sitting here going, oh, I want the fulfillment now. And
Yeah.
that's where the community aspect comes in. And this community is so incredible and everyone's just so supportive and like wants to help each other. And I love that about it.
I think you see that the people that chase the money and aren't willing to put in the work or aren't willing to kind of go outside of their work shift, which I understand in some cases, pretty much impossible if you're 14 and 7 or you're working 14-hour days plus bus rides. I get it. It's not exactly easy to go out and volunteer when you're doing that. But I think a lot of people that aren't willing to put in that effort, they kind of get eaten up by it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And those are some of the people that you kind of see come in to town. And we see it a lot with, unfortunately, with fly in fly out folks like that basically come here. The most they might see is they might come into Canadian Brew House for a night for a short change, but other than that, they're stopping at the 7-Eleven in Gregoire and skipping past town and staying in camp, where I hear they sometimes have good food depending on the camp, but that's their experience. They don't get to experience the city. They don't get to experience the concerts and theater scene and the local music and the charity and the fundraisers, and how it's almost impossible to hit every single event on a Saturday, and you have to actually prioritize what you want to be able to see, because it's impossible to hit everything. They don't get to see that. And those are the ones that, for better or for worse, whether, not saying that they're definitely not lying. That's their honest interpretation, is that they don't like it here. And they were like, well, did nothing for me, just made me money. Fair. But they weren't able to put in much of an effort either, right?
I think that applies to business as well. Like there's a lot of people that start businesses, for example, they're like, I'm just going to be wealthy and it's going to be awesome. And I'm like,
yeah,
how many hours are you putting in?
That's the dream, but
I had one of my teammates the other day go, I'm not where I want to be. And I said, I'm not where I want to be either, but I know what I'm creating, and I think that when you know what you're creating and you know where you're going with it, you can make a bigger impact.
Absolutely. You can stick to it.
So tell us a little bit about your events. I would like to share that with the world.
Yeah, I do a lot of events. I also work part-time-ish, although some weeks it's more full-time, with Balsam Communications. So Krista Balsam and I have worked together as volunteers on the chair or the board of the Fort McMurray Food Festival for the last couple of years, which, by the way, is coming back this summer. So stay tuned. Excited about that. That's for the Waypoints charity, which is another fantastic group here in town. Yeah. So as soon as I basically announced I was leaving radio, she called me up immediately and said, I want to hire you. And I said, well, no, I'm leaving radio because I've got a job. So so I've been able to work on a lot of cool events with her. We've thrown a lot of great events in the past with this company, and or with this team anyways. So the word started to spread, and now some of the other places have been hiring us. So we did the Chamber of Commerce Awards in 2019 before COVID, as well as last year. We did the Girls Inc. Gala this year, and we're currently working on the Athabasca Tribal Council Cultural Fest again this year. I wasn't a part of the team that did it in 2019, but a lot of them were. And so that's a part of it. I also do a lot of smaller events like the bar trivia nights, and I get to collaborate with a lot of the different restaurants and bars in town. But one of the big ones for me is Rock the Rails, which is I'll tell you a funny story, actually. This is kind of interesting how sort of events can come to play. We're talking spring 2019, and the previous year, I, along with my good friend Jesse Stasek from the Tavern on Main, had organized a little pub crawl, a bus tour of local art venues in town, and it was during Alberta Culture Days, and so we kind of organized this bus crawl. We didn't do a very good job. We didn't promote it very well, and we tried, but it didn't do well, and it was kind of a failure for us, and it was a big, So I remember going into this Alberta Culture Days planning meeting, basically with the binder and being like, hey, everyone, my plate is really full. Here's what we learned. Don't do this. Thank you. But then at some point in the meeting, they were kind of talking about, hey, like we really love all the Alberta Culture Days events. Is there any cultures or areas of that you don't think are represented well in Fort McMurray or aren't represented by the arts scene? And immediately skateboard culture came to mind. And I knew that there was a great skateboard scene here. And I knew that skateboard culture kind of mixes in with punk rock culture and hip hop culture and graffiti culture and all these different little cultures. And it's kind of this underground scene where you find a lot of kids kind of get left behind.
Yeah.
I was kind of like that a little bit in high school too. Not that I was good. I couldn't even kickflip, but I felt kind of more attached to that group than anything else. I was in the drama scene a little bit too, but you had the theater kids and you had the team sports guys, the hockey, and then of course you had the academic kids, but we were kind of like, we didn't really fit anywhere in there. So what were we doing after school? We were mostly just going to the skate park. Maybe drinking and smoking weed. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that or not, but that's what we did. So just trying to find that subculture kind of thing and try to find it where I found a sense of belonging for a little while in high school, and trying to find that and find that existed here. And sure enough, it absolutely did. So we ended up planning an entire event that year. And now here we are in our fourth year of Rock the Rails. We were able to do it with very strict rules. In 2020, we were only allowed to have 100 people on site at a time, and then made it even bigger last year, and finally decided September wasn't working for us anymore for the weather. So this year we moved from Alberta Culture Days, which is where we were able to get the funding for previous years, and we decided to go out and on our own. And this year on June 4th, we're hoping it'll be a lot warmer than it was in the middle of September. And now we're relying solely on sponsors.
That's cool. For those of the listeners who aren't from Northern Alberta, September is like full-blown winter.
Well, not full-blown. It can depend. It's a gamble.
Cold.
You
can
get 20 degrees, you can get 10 degrees. You're pretty much guaranteed after like 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, as soon as the sun starts going down, it's going to start dipping down, but it's kind of a gamble. Whereas June, it's sort of like, if you don't like the weather, just wait 10 minutes.
Yeah, it'll be so different. It's more the bugs that you have to worry about.
Also the bugs, yeah, that's true.
I hate those bugs so much, but
the June bugs, specifically the month of June, the June bugs, they're around all the time. But yeah, mosquitoes too.
I remember the June
bugs.
About
that as much. I always forget that bugs are a thing in the winter, because they can't exist at -30. So I always, the first mosquito I bite, I'm like, what the hell is this? Where did this guy come from?
You're like, I have a mosquito bite. What happened?
Yeah.
I used to.
Yeah, these are a thing.
When I worked in the oil sands, the tar sand beetles would literally just like swarm our trucks because they like heat, right? And so they would literally just like fly into the windows, and they're easily like an inch big. Like they're big bugs.
Yeah.
And they would just like hiss, and they'd sit on your windshield wipers. And I'm like, don't make me go out there. It was so terrifying. I hated it so much, but that's why I left my job, is because my mental health was not okay. Like I had never been more depressed in my life. I was like borderline suicidal, honestly. Like it was bad news bears. And my husband got on with Synchro directly, and he's like, Elena, quit your job and go full time with your financial company. And I was like, thank you. I'm gonna do that, because I needed that out. Like I couldn't handle getting laid off all the time. I couldn't handle not having that stability. Right. So it's hard.
It's such a hard, demanding job. I mean, you're waking up early in the morning, you're getting home, you're not seeing daylight, except for at work, right? You wake up in the dark, you get home at dark. And then of course in the summer you see it, but then in the summer, you're walking home from work and you see all your friends are all having a barbecue, might pop in. It's like, sorry guys, I got to be on a bus in 4 hours. You miss out on all those great summer events, right? And it's a high rewarding job. I mean, obviously the money affords you the opportunity to be able to vacation and travel all over the world. And I know a lot of friends who've been able to find that work-life balance with working at site, but I could never do it.
No, you couldn't pay me enough money to go back there. And like so many people, that's
And
like
then
their
the
goal.
uncertainty too, right? It's so, I mean, I think every job comes with a little bit of uncertainty. Everything in this world does today in this day and age. But with contract work or site work in the oil sands, it's so up and down.
Yeah, I
And
got laid off 4 times in 3.5 years.
and then you're like, you almost get
That's
a punch
great.
card by that
Yeah.
point.
I'm like, are you gonna
The
call me
fifth one
back?
is
Like,
free.
yeah, right. No, 5th one is not happening because I'm quitting before then. But it was just so frustrating because like you put in your heart and soul into this business and this career, for instance, and then you just get your dreams crushed. Like, oh, what do you mean you're going to go do this? Elena, you silly lady. What do you think you're going to go be a successful financial advisor? What do you mean? And I'm like,
with yourself here, yeah.
Okay, right. And so it's so frustrating. But I think that when you're talking about like finding a sense of belonging, I know my internet just kind of froze for a second there, but I'm back. You find a sense of belonging, and then you're able to go, oh, this is where I need to be because this is what fills my cup, right? You're part of an environment that you actually want to go into every day. Like you don't have to sit there and convince yourself to get out of bed. It's exciting to get out of bed. It's
100%.
Like today I had a little breakdown. I was like crying in the shower and I'm like, this is so good. Like, I love it so much. And it was just crazy because like,
good cry.
Man. Good cry. I was listening to a fight song and I was just like, take back my life song, like, yes. And I did an appointment with a girl yesterday and she's pretty new in the business. So like doesn't exactly know what she's doing 100%, but she's getting really good. And she brought a client in that was like, we've got a whole bunch of money to move and we need a bunch of insurance. And I told her how much she was going to get paid. And she literally burst into tears instantly. And I was like, that is why I do this. That's why I do this, because I can teach other people how to get wealthy, right? I can teach other people
effects firsthand of of the good you're doing, right? So
of the impact. Yeah. And it's all because I put in the time to get that knowledge,
100%.
And that's why I do the podcast too, is because I believe that you can learn something from everybody. And
100%.
Having a community and having someone to talk to is so important.
Yeah. And being able to look past people's differences. I think that doesn't happen enough these days in this day and age, right? People need to get past those things when we can and learn that you're right. I mean, pretty much every person can present like a learning opportunity for you, right? And if they don't, maybe they shouldn't be in your life, It's like,
I agree.
They just could be toxic.
Yeah. Well, and I think people are scared to say goodbye to toxic people because they're so comfortable with them.
Of course. Yeah. That's once again, that comfort level, right?
You turn into the 5 people you surround yourself with, the top 5 people you surround yourself with. So you got to ask yourself, who are those 5 people? And do they have the lifestyle I want? Right. So I look at my trainer, for example, she makes 3 times my income. And I'm like, yes, I would like her income, right? I would like her business. So obviously I'm going to try and spend time with her, and learn and develop and grow because she's clearly done something that I haven't done. And you can learn a lot from watching other people, but you can also learn a lot from like books and podcasts and stuff like that. But I also love that you can just connect with other people and go, yeah, Krista, for instance, I would love to connect with her because I've seen her speak before. And I was like, how do I get on that stage? You know what I mean? I'm like, that's amazing. So it's so cool. I don't know. I just love this community. And I think that if we could just continue to build it, it's going to do big things for people. And even especially when they leave the community, right? It's going to be like, oh, where did you create your story? Well, Fort McMurray, right? And everyone's like, where the heck is Fort McMurray? Well, the oil sands where you get the fuel for your cars. That's where we work,
Oh, they're like, oh, that hellhole, that shithole, right? So to speak, right? And then you're like, actually, fun fact, did you know Fort McMurray is actually an amazing place to raise children? We have some of the newest schools and infrastructure. We have all these young, passionate, hardworking entrepreneurs and individuals that are learning to create things. It can be tough sometimes in the event world or in the team world because you're saying goodbye to team members all the time. And that happened in radio. We had such a high turnover rate, although interestingly enough, so many of them, shout out Jenna Hamilton, who I'm currently working with again now in the Balsam Communications realm of things. So many of them stay in town.
Right.
And, you know, you see these different companies, and you see Casanat. I don't know if you're familiar with that, in Casanat event planning. That basically, if you've been to any event, I know there hasn't been a lot in the last 2 years, they've probably done the decor for it. And they were working away. And then they both decided, let's do this. Let's take this leap. Let's take this chance. You're doing that in, you know, Edmonton or Calgary. You're competing against people that have been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how good you are. It's like you've got so much work in front of you to do that. But here in Fort McMurray, you have that opportunity to try things.
Yeah.
And in their case, it pays off in spade. Sometimes you try things, it doesn't work. You have the opportunity to try and fail here. And that's what I love about this town. You know, if I, you know, when I wanted to try stand-up comedy, and I wouldn't say it was a complete failure, but it wasn't as great as some of the others. And I realized that's because I did put a little bit of work into it at first, but if I were to continue working at it, I'm sure it could develop. But I realized it's there's so much effort, and that's what you see our mutual friend Erica Moscow, or like a Renee Manners or something like that, and how good they become at those things.
Yeah, they're incredible. I'm actually doing an event with Erica in June, and I'm so excited because it's going to be a private event for my customers, right? Like my clients and my team. And we're going to throw a comedy show for them and just like make fun of the industry because the industry it's really messed up, man. And people say people talk smack about my company, and it pisses me off. And it just makes me so mad because I'm like, you clearly don't know what I'm doing.
You don't understand. What I mean?
You don't understand. And that's okay. Like, I'm not going to put you down for that. It's just be open to learning and be open to having a conversation with someone who's not that other guy who pissed you off one time. You know what I mean? That's the joys of being independent, is I get to build my own brand, and I get to, you know, establish my own identity in my company. But I still get to work with other people like Erica, for example. And like, it's just so cool to collaborate and go, hey, what can I learn from her? And she'll do I interviewed her a while ago, but she'll do stuff like give me coaching on my marketing, for instance. And she's a professional, clearly. And she's like, you should move this over here, put this here, change the color here. And I just went, how's this? And she goes, wow, you take instruction really well. I'm like, I clearly know that I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to learn. And so thank you for your free knowledge. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's what you got to be willing to learn in this community and in every industry, right? You got to be willing to sometimes sit back and be like, you're the expert, you know, teach me in your ways.
I don't know what I don't know.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And it's like just getting access to other people who've been in different fields, I think, is so important, especially like I couldn't imagine working for like Canadian Mental Health Association, especially right now when it comes to everything that's happening in the world. Yeah. They have a big job to do, very big job to do, because it's keeping people sane. Like literally, we're just here to help you stay sane. And that's great.
We see that on a day-to-day basis, and it's interesting how you see that a little bit more once you're kind of on that side of things, and not necessarily that I'm seeing it in the building as much. I mean, I'm not personally on the front lines. I'm marketing communications. I do a lot of fundraising in our social media and event plan, and try to sort of more on the lighthearted side of things a little bit. But once you're in that industry, once you start to talk about mental health, and once you start to bring up mental health a lot of people come to you, and you see the toll that the last couple of years have, and you know, even going beyond COVID. Let's go back as far as 2016. We all know what happened there in Fort McMurray. As far back as that, or even before then with the economy, you see the toll that the last couple of years have taken on people. And you see how important it is for us to, you know, to fight and to find those strategies and find those coping tactics, and be able to prioritize our mental health as well as our physical health.
Yeah. Well, and just understand that people don't know what you've gone through as well.
Mm,
So you could see someone on the street just like smiling and totally fine and good
yeah,
to go. And then they're going home and they're literally like hugging their dog and crying
yeah,
because they had to give so much of themselves that day. Or
mhm,
they're just struggling so hard and they're still like giving, you know? And
yeah,
it's crazy to think about how many people are having a hard time. For instance, like you said, 2016, we had the wildfire here.
mhm,
And you know what I noticed there? Again, how much the community came together. And then the flood a
yeah,
couple of years ago again. Um, it's crazy how well this community comes together when action is needed. And I love that.
absolutely.
That's the community I want to
Um,
build. I'm like, I want to be
mhm.
able to call on people and just go, hey guys, we got to fix this.
You see it so often, and like I said, you know, everyone has those moments of defeat. Like last year, I guess it was 2 years ago now. It's kind of hard to keep time frame for the last couple of years. We didn't have as many event markers, you know, so to
Yeah.
speak. So 2020, when the floods happened, and I was still in the radio world at the time, and we had a bit more technology, and the whole city wasn't under evacuation, so we were able to broadcast the entire time. With the fire, we got evacuated, and we were broadcasting for a while up in Timberlea, and then eventually we got evacuated too. So that
Mhm.
was it. And then it was like we had to just surrender and say, like, at this
That's
point,
it.
the best we can do is social media updates, but even we don't know what's going on because it's such a fluid situation. So
Mhm.
with the floods, we had such a limited team compared to what we had with the fire, because of what COVID had started to do, and um, just sort of the nature of the radio world a little bit. We didn't have as many people,
Yeah.
and it was a lot more difficult to get that information out there and to get that clear information, and trying to coordinate, basically. I mean, not coordinate, we weren't the ones coordinating it, but we were trying to tell people where to go because there was such an absolute outpouring. Everyone in town that wasn't evacuated, and even some of the people that were like, I'm off tonight, I don't got to go to work. What do
What
you
do you
need? Where
need?
do you need me? Where,
Yeah.
you know, sandbags, doing sandbags, throwing
I did the
things. what
sandbag.
what can I do exactly? So,
Dude, it
and
was
just trying to get the
crazy.
information. And there was a couple times where we had people call us and say, like, you know, people are starting to get nervous because this was the very start of COVID. And I know we didn't have any numbers here at the time, but you know, a lot of people were like, there's like 500 to 1,000 people here. It's very hard to social distance. We don't know, like, is this going to explode our numbers? People were worried. And so we had people start calling us and say, can you send people somewhere else? Like, stop sending people here. We can't have them here. And, you know, of course, the RCMP and the fire department as well were obviously more than willing to let people in to help protect business and protect homes, but they were
Mhm.
also concerned as well because it's like, you know, this is still an active evacuation zone, and
Yeah. We were 1 month
floodwaters move
in.
quickly,
Yeah.
and we don't want to have people stuck here. We don't want to have people trapped here.
Yeah. Well, and it was the same, like we were 1 month into COVID at that point, and it was like
Yep.
chaos, absolute fucking chaos. And yet
Mhm.
my office, I literally called my trainer and was like, I've never been more nervous in my life because
Yeah,
the last photo that I saw, there was water in the parking lot of my office. And I was like, I'm
that's
fucked.
it.
You
Yeah,
know, like oh, the damage. Guess what? It didn't go in the door.
didn't go in.
Didn't go in the door. I was like, yeah, like it was so
Yeah,
good. If you
it
don't
was
think about
wild
it,
to see where it went and where it didn't go, right? Just some
yeah,
of it made sense because of the way the hills are and stuff. But yeah, some places got it really bad and other places not much at all.
I will never forget dropping off the last load of sandbags to the hospital because the generators for the hospital are like on the ground,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah,
And then the hospital's like way above it, but they're like, no, no, no. It's if the generators go down, the city has to evacuate. And we're like,
because then the
not
hospitals.
again,
Yeah,
man,
yeah, exactly. That's
not
right. We would
again.
have lost our hospital.
Yeah, which is bad. So it's
And
just
people were
crazy.
worried about the bridge then, and it was like, is the infrastructure of the bridge going to hold all this ice? And
It was really close. It was really close. But you know what I did the next morning? I went for a walk and it was like 2 days after the initial um, the river broke, right? And it started flooding. I went for a walk, and what happened, for those of you who don't know, there was a massive ice jam because we get so much ice that it gets stuck in the river, and the rivers run north here. So it's just crazy. You'll get like 5 or 6 feet of ice on the rivers. And so it was like stuck and nowhere to go. And then
it goes on the subsidiary rivers, which is the Snai, and then the Snai just, it can't hold it.
It can't, no. And so I went out the next morning and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put some positive vibes out there. It was like 6:30 in the morning and I was walking and I was like, all I can hear is the birds chirping. And I was like, I don't need to be stressed out. Because meanwhile, I'm like having a mental breakdown going, my office is flooded. I'm screwed. How much money is this going to cost me? And it was just like, you know what, Elena, you just got to calm down because it's something that is totally out of your control. And I was like, okay.
Stress isn't going to help anything.
Not at all. So I went for a walk and then I went live because all I could hear was water flowing. And I was like, here we go. Here we go. This is good. And I walked over, and I live in Thickwood. So I walked over to like the viewpoint, and all you could see was the birds chirping and like the water was moving. And I probably had like almost 1,000 people at 6:30 in the morning cheering like, yeah, this is so good. Because how many people lost their houses that day, right? How many people, one of my buddies, his entire basement was flooded, and it was like up to the main level of the house. Like there was a lot of water.
Yeah, I had a few people like that.
It was crazy.
It was into the roof, right? And it was like, there was an interesting, and then once it subsided and we finally got the all clear to get back into the homes, everybody kind of sprung into work, and it was like we turned into a demolition and preserving crew. I remember there was a bunch of us gathered at our friend Steve Crow's basement in Waterways.
I love Steve.
And I know, he's a beauty.
Shout out to Steve. He did my
he actually did a podcast thing like 2 days before the flood, and he did a virtual tour of his basement. He's like, this is my studio, this is this. And then so I got to see it 2 weeks later, and I was like, yeah, this doesn't look anything like the video you showed me. He's like, but fortunately, he was able to move some of the expensive stuff upstairs. And the other thing is, they had building in Waterways, they kind of knew, they were like, there's always a chance. So they actually built their house about 5 feet above ground. So the main floor was unaffected, and they were able to save a lot of stuff. But yeah, we were doing full on demolition down there, drinking beers, smashing through windows, and drywall, and just trying to get as much out as possible, because there was just no way that any of the there's not enough crews in the world to be able to pull that off and to come up to Fort McMurray to get things done as quickly as it needed to be done, because then you're worried about asbestos and all kinds of other things setting in. You had to get it out, mold, right? Yeah. So we had to get it as soon as possible. So there was a lot of, you're wearing, I remember we're also in our friend Norm and Sheila Sutton, and unfortunately they've been living in their home for so long, and they lost a lot of memories and a lot of things that are irreplaceable there. But I remember being in their basement, and like, it was like, wearing a hard hat because there's these giant chunks that are falling out, and then you've got a mask on. And at the time, it wasn't necessarily because of COVID, it was also because of the asbestos fumes and everything. And then eye goggles as well, and sort of switching back and forth because I couldn't figure out how to get a mask without fogging up the glasses. So I would take the glasses off for a bit, and then something would like drip in your eye, and you're like, no, wait, bad choice. Maybe leave the mouth open. I'm like, what am I going to do here? Like, I need a hazmat suit.
Right.
It was such an experience. We were kind of all in it together, right?
Yeah. We helped one of my buddies, Louis, he's blind, and he lives in Waterways, and now he's in Canmore, or Camrose or I don't know, somewhere down south. And it starts with a C. I don't know. Louis, no. Blind Leo. That's who he is. But we had to rip off the whole belly of his trailer. But guess what? It didn't go up to the floor joists. So we only had to take out the insulation, but like legit, we made one phone call and there was 30 people there. Yeah. It was like, go time.
Facebook was just full of,
let's go.
Heritage Village needs people. This house needs people. This place needs people. And then you had guys like I don't think Billy Martin slept for like a month and a half, right? And him and his company were just going there and restoring. And then you had, I remember we're
Dale Penny
at this house, and the next thing you know, a truck pulls up and it's Trish and Gareth from Patty McSwing.
Yes.
Just loaded it up with sandwiches and burgers. And they're just down, I think it was on Hill Drive. And that was where all the houses were, and everyone was there. And they're like, here you go. Food, eat something, drink some water. Guys. And they were just donating and just trying to help, right?
I interviewed Gareth too.
I love Gareth.
Yeah, Gareth is a good guy for sure.
Fellow Welshman.
Yeah.
I mean, he's actually Welsh.
I'm a Welshman too.
Are you actually?
I actually am.
Wow, fantastic. There's a handful of us here.
I know, right?
I was born in Edmonton, but my parents are both from Wales. So technically that makes me pretty much 100% Welsh in origin.
Great grandmother is Welsh. So, and I was born on the Queen's birthday. So that's quite an interesting fact.
Oh, yes.
Fancy. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, Dale Penny was like dropping off.
Yeah, Dale was another one that was.
Dale's a good guy.
He had those big bins, right?
The big bins, yeah, the TLC. Yeah. We'll give TLC a
TLC disposal, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so he was just driving around town and like dropping off bins to people. And I was like, dude, that's amazing. Because it's not just, okay, yeah, we're going to help Louis, but my clients live next door. So now I'm going to go over and help my clients gut their basement, you know, and like, he's one of my client, he like sent me a video of him like kayaking to his front door and like, just crazy. And I'm like, dude, that's surreal. He's like, yeah, I got onto my porch off my kayak and I had to go plug the drains or the air vents so that the water didn't go into the house. Cause we knew it was going down at that point. But they're like, we just don't want it to go in our house. And I was like, wow, that's just nuts, man. Like, it was crazy. But I love that this city will just mobilize people. And that's kind of what I want to create here. I call it the world shakers, right? Like people that are going out and just making a difference and creating change for the positive. And that's why I asked you to be on the show, because I think you're doing good things, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that. There's so many people in this town. And, you know, I've been blessed, whether it's because of the radio background or social media, and to be kind of front facing guy. And I get a lot of airtime, so to speak, and a lot of thanks, which I love and appreciate. But at the same time, there's so many of those unsung heroes that are putting in all these work and kind of always behind the scenes and not. So I try to shout them out and find ways to celebrate them as much as possible too.
That's amazing. And that's how it should be. So that's why I do the show, really, like just connecting people with people that might be able to help them in some way, shape, or form. Like even just talking about the flood and the fire, people are going to reminisce, but they're also going to reflect on why they're so grateful, right? They're going to reflect on, oh, I do get to have this now. Like some of my clients have brand new houses now. And it's like, yes, I lost my home and I lost all my stuff. And that really is irreplaceable. Like that, you can't get that back, but you got a massive payout. Now you have cash flow. Now you have a brand new house. Now you can start over, you know, and there's a lot of people who are like grateful for that experience, just for that fact that it helped them really work through some of the stuff that they had feared, because it's like, oh, you don't really have to worry about that anymore because you already went through it and now you know how to overcome it, right? But you can also rely on your community, which I think is pretty incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And, you know, of course, not everybody was as fortunate, right? And
totally,
your heart goes out to those people, but you know that, you know, we where we could, we came together and we tried to help out. And, you know, we organized a concert through Country 93.3, and we brought in Brett Kissel was one of the first guys to say yes. And Tim Hicks and the Washboard Union, a bunch of artists, and they just were able to play some virtual songs for us. And we had an evening sort of getaway, even though we're all in front of our computer screens, and just were able to raise a little bit of money for the Red Cross and to try to help to get as many, just get some people out there. And the Red Cross, I know locally at least, were phenomenal.
They were so good.
The crews that were here were out there night and day, right? And they were setting up those drive-through spots where people were coming in and grabbing water or grabbing whatever they needed for supplies. It was good to see what they were doing here.
I'm going to give an extra shout out to Brett Kissel because he just donated his time to play at our charity gala as well.
Oh, nice.
And we raised $75,000 for the Stollery Children's Hospital in Edmonton. And I'm really impressed with that. So
Brett's a solid dude. He's always had Fort McMurray's back.
yeah,
We've had some good memories here. So
that's cool. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. But
fellow Oilers fan, fellow whiskey fan. He's a good dude. He's always good to sit down and have a drink with.
yeah. So if you could give someone advice who's like just getting started in business or looking at changing a career, is there a couple words of advice that you would give those people?
I think, yeah, you got to be able to take the risk. I think having a plan is part of that, and trying to make sure you have some connections and, maybe a backup plan or two, just to make sure, not that I really had one either, but I don't want to tell people like, just dive in, but you got to commit, and you got to, if you're humming and hawing about it, talk to your friends. They know you the best. Other than, of course, well, you know yourself the best, right? And if maybe they're not telling you the right information, but make sure that you're making the right call. And if that's what you want to do, that's what you got to do. But my biggest advice, especially in Fort McMurray, is this is a community that is what you make it.
Yeah.
You can spend time grumbling in your basement, or spend time being like, why is this a thing? Why is there a concert across the street from my house? Why is it so loud? Blah, 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 whatever it is, trying to find the good in people and the good in this community, and celebrating those wins. And I think a lot of that is getting out there and being involved, and it's beyond just going to the grocery store and ordering skip the dishes all the time. Get out there, volunteer for things, even if it's if you only have a couple hours a week to give. We've food bank drive, stuff like that. Anything that's happening in town, they're always looking for volunteers, and I can't tell you the amount of people that I've met through volunteering for events, and that's where you make your connections.
I'm actually sponsoring the Fuse Social Pancake Breakfast for Volunteer Month. And I'm like, yeah, that's my jam, because guess what I'm going to go do? I'm going to go network with all of these people who have a like mind.
And pancakes at the same time.
So many pancakes, even though I can't have gluten, but I'm going to do it anyways because it's worth it. Pancakes at Earl's, like, are you? Yeah, that's happening. But yeah.
Shout out Fuse Social. A bunch of very talented, awesome ladies there.
And Shauna, she's my gal. Shauna she is so good and is on it all the time. Like, boom, she's worked for a couple different nonprofits, and I follow her wherever she goes, because I'm like, I hope to one day recruit you. Like, one day, because she's just a good human. And I think that in this city in particular, there's a lot of really solid people that are just trying to make a big difference, and create a good name for our community. And I think
the hardest job that I've ever had, the hardest thing I've ever had to do, and luckily it's not all on me, every year is when the 50 under 50, I was blessed to be in the class in 2019. And then last year I was invited to be on the selection committee, and it was literally 40 people in a room. It was on Zoom last year. It was 40 people in a Zoom room, literally yelling and screaming at each other and trying to advocate for we had probably, well, not quite, it was civil-ish, somewhat like almost 250, 300 names thrown out there, and trying to whittle them down and trying to make sure that you're getting a variety of people. And every year you come out and you're like, oh, I can't believe this person didn't, or this person didn't. And then the week after, you're like, why wasn't that person even? They weren't even on the list. Yeah, exactly. So
I've never been on the list, and I'm like,
the list for the last year, right? Yeah,
I like recognition. That's the thing. Who doesn't really?
You're on my list.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's so cool though. Like, that's the thing. If you just band together and go, hey, let's just raise a community, right?
So many great people to celebrate that are worth celebrating here, right?
I love it.
Because then there's always people that are like, how are you going to find 50 every year? I'm like, are you kidding me? You have no idea how many people we had last year.
Oh man, I can give you so many lists.
And then of course, new people come to town, or people take that next step and they end up doing something even bigger, right?
Yeah, it's so cool. I loved it. Erica's was my favorite. She wore a hot dog suit, and I was like, I love you. Like, you're so great. Just being authentically herself, right?
That's Erica. That's Erica to a T.
Yeah, and it's so funny because when you just own it and you just go, no, this is who I am. I like to make people laugh. I'm an entertainer, like it's just being true to yourself. And I think that that's a huge key. So anyways, we are out of time for today.
Oh boy.
I know. Everyone wants more, but me too. So where can people get access to you?
Follow me on social media at Nutty Skodork on Instagram and Twitter, I suppose, as well. No, don't follow me on Twitter. Twitter's more, it's ranting. Yeah, Twitter's not a fun place sometimes. Facebook, I have a page as well called On Stage with Mike Jones. I post all the events every weekend that are happening on Facebook and Instagram, and especially focusing on the live music and theater scenes. So anytime you're looking for a good night out on a Friday, Saturday, you don't know where to go, you're going to have a plethora of options. If you check out that page. And then, of course, Rock the Rails, YMM, Facebook and Instagram. If you want to sponsor, or if you want to just come and show off your skateboard skills, open to all ages.
I would be so down for that, by the way. My husband likes to skateboard. I have zero coordination. So yeah, we'll have some fun.
Let's make it happen.
Just don't make me go on a skateboard, okay?
Yeah, a deal.
I'm like, if you want to see me crack my head open, yeah, don't.
There's other ways to do it. Yeah. Right. Safer ways, just kidding.
Right. All right, guys. Well, thank you again, Mike, for being on the show. I am super blessed to have you on. I know everyone got a ton out of what we chatted about today. So yeah, that's it for our show. That's Pursuit of Relentless signing out.